Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Roundup for NFL Week 13. Zach Ewing here with you on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, along with Spencer the Guru. We are here a little bit earlier than usual today. Have a couple of things going on in my life, but it also gives you an opportunity to tune in before the big USA-Iran soccer match at 1 o'clock. Spencer, I know you're keyed into that.
I'll try not to pull a Jim Derry and fall asleep. So I've watched a few soccer matches. I've been improving, I guess, in my soccer watching. It's just tough though, considering that I don't understand the game like I do football or baseball. But I'm trying to learn.
No, and I try not to shame people. I mean, listen, people are allowed to like what they like, but it is the United States. And even Jim Derry bet on a soccer match last week. He bet on a
Hey,
draw of all things,
progress.
and lost. But
Of course.
it's it's all right. Hey, the Fantasy Roundup is brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. Do us a favor, support Caesar Sportsbook. If you are into sports betting, go to NOLA.com/Caesars, and your first bet, if it does not win, is refunded in the form of a free bet up to $1,250. You can also, by the way, go to LSUposter.com if you're interested in a set of 3 LSU championship posters from front pages from national championships or conference championships past. Joe Burrow's Heisman, always a consideration as well. Jim, Uncle Big Nick says Jim loves 1-0 baseball games, so no surprise he bet on a draw. Yeah, I think France was the one that screwed him. It was like 1-1, and Mbappe scored in like the 86th minute or something, and screwed him. So, if you're watching on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, give us a like or a subscribe. If you're not watching on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, well, get over there, subscribe, help us out. We're trying to grow the channel, trying to become South Louisiana's source for sports betting. We already are that, but we're trying to let people know. And of course, fantasy sports. And that will lead us in to the program today. We're going to start, as we always do, by taking a look back at week 12. Then a lot to talk about in week 13. Slim pickings on the waiver wire, Spencer. Deshaun Watson coming back from the Browns. We can talk about that. A couple of games it looks like you and I both like in the DFS world to target. So let's dig right in. We'll recap week 12 pretty quick first. Top scoring quarterbacks. See all these guys really pretty close, and no real surprising names here.
Right. Yeah, it's good to see Trevor Lawrence have success against the Ravens defense that had been trending up. So that was probably the biggest surprise, I'd say, because a lot of people are getting down on Trevor, including myself, because he was someone I liked a lot before the season, but he's been struggling lately. I was like, man, this dude, is he ever going to come around? But I think he's starting to. He's somebody that, he's very talented, and it's one of those things. If he's locked in, he's going to do special things. Kind of the same with Kyler Murray. I know they blew the game, but I mean, he's so talented, at least for fantasy, to where he's strong and in those top 3 or must starts.
Yeah, and the top 2 were not in the main DFS slate. They Eagles played Sunday night, and the Bills played on Thursday, of course. So kind of a weird week for DFS last week. Moving on to running backs, of course, the big star of the week. We'll talk more about him, but Josh Jacobs turned an already really great day into a pretty epic day. I believe he's the second highest scorer of any player this season. 48.3 points with that 84-yard touchdown run in overtime against Seattle.
Yeah, I think the only player with more on the season was that Joe Mixon week from a few weeks ago where he had over 50. So yeah, Jacobs has been a top 5 running back this year. He's fit like a glove in Josh McDaniels' offense, which has kind of been underwhelming, but it's starting to pick up the pace here. And then Jacobs is somebody's in a contract year. He's playing for the contract to stay in the league, he's still young. He could get a multi-year deal as a workhorse running back. He's showing that he's got the juice. And Miles Sanders having a nice year too. Another one in a contract year that's fit in well in the explosive Eagles attack. And then nice to see big hat Brian Robinson cracking the top 5.
Uncle Big Nick, not in the listener league, but in his other league, yeah, Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs scored. Yeah, that'll do it. You get 75 from 2 guys, or I think almost 80 from 2 guys. We'll get to waiver wire in a minute, Spencer, but Uncle Big Nick did have a question. So Elijah Mitchell banged up again, CMC hobbled. Is the Mason kid for the Niners worth a look?
He could be, and also Ty Davis Price from LSU. I know he was a healthy scratch last week, but I think he could play a role as well. So I'm not really sure. I mean, as long as CMC's playing, it's probably not worth going for their second back. They do run a lot though, so keep an eye on Mason and Davis Price.
Yeah, that's Jordan Mason of the 49ers, kid out of Georgia Tech. So interesting look there. And we'll talk about waiver wire, as I said, here in a minute. Wide receivers for week 12, again, really bunched up at the top here. No huge surprises. Nice to see the Jets offense get uncorked, though, with Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, definitely. And that had a lot to do with Mike White under center as opposed to Zach Wilson. Just the passing game took off. And I feel like they'll stick with that for the foreseeable future since they won and just had a lot more success. So yeah, Garrett Wilson trending up. Zay Jones trending up with the Jags playing better. And then they had a top three. Chris Godwin kind of surprising. Amon-Ra Jefferson have been strong all year, but Godwin's been gotten off to kind of a rocky start coming off an ACL injury, but it looks like he's peaking at the right time.
Yeah, interesting. That Bucs team, so much talent, and they keep losing games. Of course, have the Saints on Monday Night Football this week. Tight ends in week 12, again, a bunch at the top. Dalton Schultz gets a couple of touchdowns on Thanksgiving, and that made him the top scorer. Jelani Woods, a good night for the Colts last night.
Yeah, really nice showing for Jelani Woods. With Kylan Granson out, he took advantage of that and showed that if you have him in Dynasty, he's not someone I'd trust moving forward. But for Dynasty, if you have Jelani Woods, keep him stashed because he's got a bright future there. Big target, should continue to get more involved over there. And yeah, Josh Oliver, frustrating, man. The Ravens so frustrating. It should be Mark Andrews, damn it. What are y'all doing, Baltimore? And then Kelsey and Hawk, no surprises.
Yeah, absolutely. Your fantasy star, Spencer, I knew you were going to pick him. I always let you pick first.
Yeah, I had to.
This was the most obvious one of the entire year, I think. He was 17 points higher than the next highest guy in week 12.
Yeah, for sure. And luckily I have him. I only have him in one league, but it's a big money league, 14-team super flex. And I got him, I think, in like the 5th round of that because I punted running back. I didn't take any running backs early. I went quarterbacks, receivers, tight end. I took Kelsey early. So I punted running back, but glad I did because, I'll take Kelsey and Jacobs over, let's just say I'd have taken Saquon instead of Kelsey and then had like a Goddard or a Hawkinson, just mid-level tight end. So Jacobs, man's really paid off, and just this week, his best week of the year. And yeah, I mean the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where the Raiders add Devontae Adams. Oh, Derek Carr's got a new toy. They're going to throw. And it's not like they haven't thrown some, but this is a run-first offense, and Josh McDaniels, I think, likes it that way, and that's what we've seen. And as you said, the Raiders have started to have more success by establishing the run. And then all of a sudden, Devontae Adams, you can't bracket him or double cover him on every snap, and he starts to get uncorked a little bit. It'll be interesting. Raiders play the Chargers this week. We'll talk about some games later on with shootout potential in week 13, but that's one of them. So you took Jacobs. I went with Miles Sanders for my star of the week. And really, this is, Josh Jacobs, you're going to start him every week. Miles Sanders was starting to get to the point where people were sheepish about starting him, and you probably only did it in deep leagues, but he certainly paid off. I mean, between him and Jalen Hurts, the Eagles go nearly 300 rushing yards on Sunday night against the Packers. And it was good to see Miles Sanders get a lot of play.
Right. Yeah, they're dangerous. That Eagles running game is no joke to where I'd say Miles Sanders moving forward, unless they're facing like the 49ers, some elite run defense, he's a must start. To me, you got to start Miles Sanders at this point. The offense is too good, and he's the primary back over there. Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, they just work in sparingly. Sanders is definitely the guy there.
We'll wrap up week 12 with a look at our Bayou Bets listener standings. Oh, by the way, I whipped up on Uncle Big Nick. You're welcome. He's eliminated. And boom, down goes the Guru is eliminated, Spencer. I'm sure you're not sad about that.
Yeah, I'm glad he beat Minoka this week because that gives me a sliver of hope to where it's like, dude, Minoka, if he'd won, would have been 9-3. And I think there's how many weeks? There's only
there are still 3 weeks left, and it's interesting you say that because you obviously will either need to catch myself or Minoka. I don't know how ESPN. This is an ESPN league. I don't know how the schedule worked out this way. Minoka and I played twice in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah,
So
same with me and my
you've got
dad.
a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, they messed it up, man. I don't know what happened. I guess we should have gone through it and made some changes before. I thought ESPN would be smart enough to just pump out a regular schedule. I didn't think they'd botch it like that, but oh well,
Yeah,
we'll have to make do. And yeah, I think I got a fighting chance here. 6-6. I got a much needed dub over Will Lutz there, who was fighting for his life as well. So yeah, it's gonna
yeah,
be
yeah.
interesting.
And I mean, I think what you have to hope is that either me or Minoka sweeps the other, so that one of us, has 6 losses, and then you've got a chance to tie us. Obviously, would have to catch us in points as well. But if we split, now all of a sudden you need us one of us to lose that middle game. I haven't looked at the standings, but interesting. It is still pretty competitive. Only the one team, Bucktown, has clinched a playoff spot, so he's in the 4-team playoffs, playing for those Saints Panthers tickets at 11-1. Bama Fike's very close, just needs one more win or one more Guru loss, and he's in the playoffs. And then it's the 3 of us fighting for those last 2 spots.
Yep, it's gonna be fun. I'm just glad I'm still in it because man, my team was just after that bye week where you caught me, Zach, on that week 9 when I had my whole starting lineup out. I was like, oh my god, like what do I do? I think I was 4-5 at that point. I was like, man, if this team bottoms out, I can't bottom out, man. This is in front of everybody. This is the Bayou Vets Listener League, man. We had to have a pep talk, pump the team up, and they listen. They're coming up.
Yeah, it's always nice when your fantasy team listens to those pep talks.
Yeah,
They,
for
uh,
real.
they listen. It's a fun time of year, and you often think, oh, like my advice to people when you're drafting is you shouldn't even really pay attention to bye weeks. I mean, you don't want everybody on the same bye week, but if you're getting good players and 3 or 4 of them happen to have a week 11 bye week or whatever, it's one game out of 15 or 14 or 15. Like, it's not gonna usually cripple you. It just so happened that you were playing the one guy, me, you were chasing for the playoff spot in that one week, but the chances of that happening are obviously pretty slim. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. It just didn't work out for you. This is
Mhm.
the Fantasy Roundup on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel and bet.nola.com. Zach Ewing with Spencer the Guru. Do us a favor. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Share us with your friends. Tell us about us. We're usually 2 p.m. every Tuesday. We are coming to you a little bit early this week on waiver wire day in most fantasy football leagues. And so with that said, let's get to some waiver wire targets for week 13. If you're in deeper leagues, look, there's just not much out there. So if you suffered an injury or something this week, I hope you have somebody on your bench, because it's, as you said earlier, Spencer, the pickings are slim.
Yeah, I mean, I had trouble finding people for this week, man. This was brutal. What can I say? It's brutal. I mean, there's nothing there hardly. So hopefully your team's pretty well set. There's only a couple teams on bye week, so shouldn't have bye week blues. But for those that need people, let's go over the names here. Jared Goff, I think, is a decent streaming QB. They're playing Jacksonville. That should be a shootout. A good matchup there. Zonovan Knight, rookie running back for the Jets. Brees Hall's done. Michael Carter's banged up, probably going to be out at least this week. So Zonovan Knight took over as their primary back. James Robinson also out of the picture, healthy scratch. So I'm guessing he's fallen out of favor with the coaching staff there. And then DeAndre Carter, it was the best name on that list, though, for the Chargers. He's only rostered in 5.6% of leagues. Mike Williams is out. As long as Mike Williams is out, DeAndre Carter is the deep threat over there. So to me, he's the best name there. And then they really had nothing at tight end. I mentioned Logan Thomas again because they have a good matchup this week. He had a chance last week, though, and stunk. But I guess if you need to take a chance on the tight end, he's somewhat worth it because when healthy, he usually sees a decent amount of targets.
I love the Carter look, and not just because Mike Williams is out, but you look at the Chargers' upcoming schedule, like Raiders. That we talked about, that could be a shootout. Dolphins, that game's going to be a shootout. Week 15 is a little bit, Titans not a great matchup for an offense, but then you get into the playoffs and it's Colts and the Rams, who are a shell of what they are. So some really good matchups for the Chargers down the stretch outside of that 1 week against the Titans. So DeAndre Carter, and then Uncle Big Nick also mentioned Jordan Mason for the 49ers, and also a potential add if you're looking for running back help. If you
Yeah.
don't trust the rookie Zonovan Wright, or if you're
Knight,
further down
yeah.
in the waiver order, you're out of fab. I mean, you can kind of look at both of these guys and see if you can make it work. We did have a question from Blurpy. Would you rather have rest of season Mike Evans, Chris Olave, or Deebo Samuel?
I think I would take Deebo because the Bucks, the Bucks offense, Evans is kind of inconsistent. Olave, He's been a little down lately because of the QB situation, and then he's probably going to have Winston back, going to have to build the chemistry back with him, I would think, although Dennis Allen just seems to have this blind loyalty to Dalton. So Olave might be stuck with Dalton. That's why I'm going Debo. I'm going Debo, in that offense, he's going to be heavily involved in on a per touch basis. He's probably the most efficient out of those guys. And yeah, he can run the ball too. Yeah, give me Debo.
Yeah, it's really tight between those three for me. I might lean Evans, but I don't know that there's necessarily a wrong answer there. I
Yeah,
do
they're
think
all
Brady's
solid.
comfortable with Evans, but Jerry, my man, good afternoon to you.
Jerry,
Nice to
what's
see
up?
you. Um, we're going to talk. I have a little bit of a different look at Week 13 as we go through. Um, I want to look at some totals because that's something, especially in DFS, you can really target games with high totals. Listen, the wise guys think if a game is going to go over 50 points, it's usually a good idea to target somebody from those games, especially
Yeah.
if it's maybe a surprising game. But first, let's finish up the waiver wire discussion with who you're dropping in this case, and some injuries here, but also like 51.4% of you still own Russell Wilson. What are we doing?
That's why I put him on here. It's like, damn, y'all really still have Russell Wilson on y'all's teams? Come on, man, get rid of him. I mean, that Broncos offense is one of the worst. It's teetering on being one of the worst in NFL history. So like, he's got to go. Come on, and
I've got
then
him in a super flex league, and it kills me because I
oh
have to keep him in a super flex league.
yeah, that's
But
true. Yeah, this is
but
single QB though. It's crazy that he's still
yeah,
rostered in that many single QB leagues. And then yeah, Elijah, just the injury. I mean, he hadn't been put on IR yet, I don't think, but he will be. 6 to 8 week timetable for fantasy. I mean, it's just he's done. So gotta cut bait. And then Curtis Samuel. I had originally had Kadarius Toney, but he might still have a sliver of hope in the Chiefs offense. So I put Samuel instead because Samuel, man, ever since Heineke took over at QB, his stats have gone down, down, down. Where this week he didn't even catch a single pass. I mean, he's just fallen out of the picture over there in Washington. So he's got to go. And then Kyle Pitts, I don't know why they didn't get the message last week. He's still owning over half of leagues, and he's done, y'all. Even if he comes back, that Falcons offense is hot garbage. So just move on, man.
Jerry notes kind of one of the pieces of news of the day: C.J. Gardner
Ooh,
Johnson out indefinitely for the Eagles.
wow, that's big
Um,
news.
Not a huge fantasy impact, but Saints fans will be interested. I'm in the boat, and I may be in the minority. I think Gardner Johnson's a little overrated. I know he gets a lot of turnovers. A lot of them are the right place, right time. That said, that was not a good trade for the Saints. Like I
A
wouldn't have
horrible
gotten rid
trade.
of him. But I do think the impact on the Philly defense is more in depth than it is in anything else. Like he gets a lot of these right place, right time turnovers, and they still count. But I don't think he's like a superstar or anything like that. Although obviously you never want to lose a starter. Week 13 DFS. We both targeted the same game here. Jets and Vikings is one of them. Mike White, 5,400. I mean, look, he threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Bears. Bears secondary is bad. Well, so is the Vikings. The Vikings secondary is no good. And I paired him with Garrett Wilson here. And you could go Elijah Moore, which we'll talk more about later as well. He's even cheaper. A.J. Dillon of the Packers, have to think with Jordan Love probably starting for Green Bay against that bad Chicago defense. Listen, you could play Jordan Love at quarterback, but I also think the Packers will look to run the ball. Give me A.J. Dillon. And then George Kittle paying up a little bit at tight end here for 5,000. But the Dolphins spotty against tight ends. Game's going to be a shootout. I know Kittle can be a little bit of a roller coaster, but I'll take my chances in DFS that he pops off with a big week in what could be a shootout Niners and Dolphins.
Yeah, those are all look like pretty promising plays. AJ Dillon has been like I don't know if I could trust him considering how bad he's been. I know he bounced back last week, but yeah, the Jets, they could keep it going against Minnesota, being how stinky their defense is. I mean, they just got lit up by Mac Jones, so I like the Mike White Wilson stack.
Yeah, and again, you're taking risks in DFS, right? Like you're not going to play it like you do your season long, where you go, oh, I can't start that guy's too inconsistent.
Yeah.
Inconsistent's okay because people aren't going to play him, and if he has one of his good weeks, it's going to pay off. So the other game that I was going to say that you could target is Jaguars Lions, and that's where you went for your stack.
Right, yeah, T-Law and Zay Jones, I think they'll keep it going this week against Detroit. Detroit, stinky, stinky. They just got, I mean, even though Josh Allen's banged up, I mean, he had the biggest week among fantasy QBs last week. So, that just goes to show how bad their defense is. So I'm thinking T-Law and Zay Jones do well again, and very affordable, very cheap for players that have the potential to put up big numbers. And then David Montgomery going the opposite of that, that Packers Bears, the running game. I'm thinking that he'll do well, being that he's the full workhorse now. Khalil Herbert's on IR. Packers run defense stinks. And then Gerald Everett, the tight end play there, that's pretty affordable and gets a good matchup against the Raiders.
Yeah, and if Fields is not playing, which we don't think separated shoulder, I don't think there's any reason for the Bears to rush him back. With Trevor Siemian and the Packers run defense, I love Montgomery. Now, he may be very popular, but definitely worth your consideration. Uncle Big Nick says, "What's up with the Japan flag?" I got all of the World Cup flags back here. So what do I have? I have a U.S. flag. This is South Korea. I got Japan, but I'll see. I got USA here. So go USA. Make sure the Iranian flag is out of the picture for today. We're not going with that today. Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com and the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up for us. Leave your comment or your question. Spencer will get to you before the end of the show. One kind of new feature I want to take a look at is, and this is one thing fantasy players, especially DFS players, look at a lot, and that's the total for each game. So here's your top 10 totals. Basically expected number of points between the teams, and you don't necessarily want the team that's going to score more points. Sometimes you want the team that's going to be chasing those points. But Chiefs Bengals, your shootout of the week, probably a lot of obvious DFS plays, expensive DFS plays in that game. But we talked about a couple of the others: Jaguars, Lions, Chargers, Raiders over 50. Then a little bit of a drop off, but you have Jets, Vikings at number 6. The one I want to circle, Spencer, Browns, Texans at 47. Deshaun Watson's return for the Cleveland Browns. What do you make of Deshaun? Where are you slotting him in your QB rankings this week?
Oh man, I kind of like the under in that. I don't see that being a big shootout. I think they kind of ease Watson back in and lean more on the run because the Texans stink against the run. I feel like they kind of play it safe there. It'll be kind of I'll take a hostile environment. I know the Texans are out of it, but they gotta believe.
Oh, it's their Super Bowl. Absolutely.
That's what that game I think could be ugly and muddy. So I would not touch that. I mean, Deshaun Watson, if you have him in season long, it's a decent play because he'll probably throw a touchdown or two. Because I still think the Browns will find a way, even though the Texans, it's their Super Bowl, but they stink. So. But for DFS, I don't want it because Watson's pretty expensive, and just coming back like that, not worth the price.
Yeah, I would temper your expectations a little bit, depending on who your other quarterback is in season long. But just be careful. Look, he hasn't played an NFL game in 2 years, almost 2 years. He hasn't played one in front of fans in almost 3 years. The last game Deshaun Watson played in front of fans was a divisional round playoff game, Texans at Chiefs. And the Texans jumped up to like a 24-0 lead or 24-3 lead or whatever it was and lost the game. That's the last time Deshaun Watson, that was January of 2020, has not played in front of fans since then. 2020 season he played, Texans weren't very good, behind closed doors most of the time, or very limited fans. And then he missed last season, of course. And quite frankly, in the preseason, Deshaun Watson looked pretty rusty, I thought. And now you've added 11 weeks onto that. He could, by end of the year, by fantasy playoff time, I'm not dropping Watson, but I would temper my expectations for this week.
Yeah, definitely. Because, the Texans have been so bad, but I'm thinking that, like I said, it's like their Super Bowl or they could pull the upset. I know the Browns, I'm sure, are a trendy survivor pick, but I don't know, man. I mean, you never know what can happen, and it just with that, that was an ugly exit. I mean, you couldn't have an uglier exit than that. I mean, with all the he said about the Texans were doing this and they say the Texans were kind of caught up in the whole scandal as well. So it's ugly. I don't know what to expect there, so I'd stay away from it for fantasy if I can.
That is the first time anyone's described a game indoors as muddy, by the way. But I get what you mean. It's kind of like, they're gonna not physically muddy, but it's gonna be. They're going to try to make that game a fight.
Yeah, ugly per se. I mean, it won't be any literal mud, but it's I just get a bad feeling about it. I don't know. It's just whenever you have a bad blood exit like that, it's just a lot of times it's one of those circumstances that can't really put a statistic on it, but you just know like from a reality standpoint that it's just probably not going to end well.
Yeah, it's a weird one from a fantasy perspective. The total at 47 again, and as you go down this list, I start a couple of ones that are not part of your DFS main slate. Colts Cowboys is the Sunday night game. Why they didn't flex that, I have no idea.
Yeah,
When you
that's
had
gross.
49ers Dolphins, and I assume Chiefs Bengals was protected by CBS and they couldn't flex that. But
Yeah.
49ers Dolphins would have been a great game to have on Sunday Night Football. And then Bills Patriots is the Thursday night game. Any of these games a little bit lower on the list, or maybe even one of the five that are not listed that you think could be higher scoring than anticipated?
Yeah, look at that Jets Vikings total's kind of low there at 45.5. I'd take the over on that. The Titans Eagles. I don't know. Yeah, that one's about fair. Let's see. Yeah, all these look about right. I'd say there might be some of the other ones that could end up a little more like, I mean, Saints Bucks might end up, if Jameis ends up starting, that one could go over. I'm not sure what the total is. I'm guessing it's low 40s, but like I know that's a Monday night, but for those that like to play the Monday night DFS, there could be some money to be made there.
Yeah, for sure. And Jameis would be interesting. I just don't think he's going to start unless Dalton gets hurt. I think that
God,
ship has sailed. So
Dennis
um,
Allen, man. Oh yeah, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
yeah, we
We
can
did
talk
it
about that.
yesterday.
We did it yesterday. We can do it on Thursdays. Buy your bets. I mean, we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. Fact of the matter is, against subpar defenses, Dalton has been fine. The Bucks, not really a subpar defense, haven't played up to snuff. I mean, I don't. I'll lean back on my. I don't know how big of a difference it actually makes. And by the way, you pointed out that Jets Vikings total. That thing started at 42.5. So it's been steamed all the way up 3 points already, and maybe more to come. But it does seem. Listen, Vikings are an over team all the way around right now. Their offense is rolling, but the defense is bad. And you add in the fact that the Jets look like new life with Mike White. Um, maybe that is a shootout game, and you talked about that, and I talked about that. And then as we talk about sleepers, I mentioned Garrett Wilson, and this is funny. Spencer and I come up with our lists separately for DFS and for stars and for sleepers and all of that. And I came up with the name Elijah Moore too, Spencer, and I had to change it because that was of all the players in the league, that was the exact one you came up with for your sleeper.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, man. Yeah, great minds think alike. Yeah, because Elijah Moore, like I feel really good about it. Being that yeah, it's in this matchup that could be high scoring, and with Mike White seeking a new life, Elijah Moore had basically been dead for fantasy, and he was like wanting out of New York because he wasn't getting targeted. But now that Mike White's in there, it's new life over there, and hopefully it sticks because I think it's better for them in real life. I mean, Zach Wilson sucks. I said it coming out of the draft. Jim always gets on Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I don't claim to be an expert scout, but I mean, I watched film on all of them, and to me, it wasn't even close. I mean, Trevor Lawrence could make all the throws. He did everything right. Zach Wilson was pitiful. The only time he made good throws was when he had a clean pocket, like had all day to throw. And when he didn't, yeah, he would make these running plays, but it's like he wasn't really. He's not enough of an athlete to be good enough for the NFL. To me, the Jets completely whiffed there, but maybe Mike White will save the day for him, and as a result, save Elijah Moore's fantasy value.
I don't know, man. Asking Mike White to save the day for you. If you remember when Mike White came in before for the Jets, when Sam Darnold got benched a couple years ago, he had one big game and then he
Yeah,
fell off. So
yeah,
I
the
don't know.
Bills, yeah, the Bills game. I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that was
and listen,
last year when he came in
yeah,
for when Wilson got hurt.
okay, yeah, I'm confusing my starters there, but yeah, he came in last year, had one big game and then fell off. It could be two big games this year because, as we said, the Vikings secondary has not been good, and that game has shootout potential. But after that, it's the Bills. I think the Patriots. No, they've already played the Patriots. Somebody else tough. I mean, the Jets schedule does get a lot tougher. I went to the same game, and Adam Thielen finally showing some signs of life. You can get him for like 5,000 in DFS. If you have him stashed on your bench, it might be time to bring Adam Thielen back out.
Yeah, he did well against New England. I had him actually in the Thanksgiving DFS column as somebody to look at because he was pretty reasonably priced. Even though Jefferson ended up having the big game, I wasn't comfortable paying up for him. So I was like, go to Thielen, and I mean, Thielen delivered at least. You know, it's not like you were totally left hung out to dry if you went that route. So I mean, yeah, I think he could continue that this week with Sauce Gardner being giving all his attention toward Jefferson.
Yeah, and that's something we see with the Vikings is Jefferson's going to start getting a lot of double coverage. Well, Adam Thielen, this guy was a number one receiver just a couple years ago, so he could
Yeah.
certainly take advantage of that. In fact, maybe if you need receiver help, a guy you look to target if you haven't hit your trade deadline. Most leagues have, I know, but if you have a late trade deadline, a guy maybe to target as well. So this has been the Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com and the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button for us. Subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. We'll be back at 4 o'clock on Thursday. We'll talk SEC Championship game, LSU, Georgia. We will talk Saints and Bucks Monday Night Football. Bills, Patriots, kind of an intriguing Thursday night football game. And everything else, all of our picks for the week. Hopefully, we'll have a USA World Cup game to discuss. If they make it through, they play either Saturday or Sunday, so that'll be on the weekend too. And then Friday, by the way, live from Atlanta, I'll have an SEC Championship special edition of Bayou Bets with Scott Rabelais. So that'll be a lot of fun as well as we get ready for LSU Georgia on Saturday. Spencer, to wrap up the roundup, what are your final thoughts?
All right, yeah, I would say just most trade deadlines, like you said, have passed. So like I would say just start preparing. I think I said it last week, and I'll say it again. Just start preparing for those playoff matchups with your schedules. Make sure you've got good defenses lined up to stream in weeks 15, 16, and 17. Make sure your starters have fairly decent schedules. If not, pick up some players that do, just in case you need to pivot. So just start getting prepared, y'all. I know it's tough if you're like in the middle of a fight for a playoff spot, but if you've got everything clinched, like don't get comfortable. There's always something to be grinding for and looking at in fantasy. So if you've got that edge, if you're ahead, take advantage of that and be prepared for that playoff run.
Absolutely, good advice. Next week, the final week of the regular season in a lot of leagues. Our listener league still has 2 more weeks left after this one, but good luck chasing those playoff spots. Good luck keeping your playoff rosters healthy and all of that. And we'll see you next week at 2 o'clock on the Fantasy Roundup. Reminder, Bayou Bets right here, same channel, same social media platforms at 4 o'clock on Thursday as we continue to go through the football season. Thanks for watching, everybody. For Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing.